today's tutorial will be on how to sew our bikini pattern top with one sleeve and a small sleeve on one of the sides. So it's an asymmetric top. It has darts, as you have seen on the intro video, and it has one sleeve on one of the sides. So we are going to use this beautiful fabric as our main fabric, and I will be using also another swimwear fabric in red for my lining. So you can use two swimwear fabrics for this top. And then I want to remind you that since this is asymmetric, you always need to remember that you have to cut front and back with right sides facing outwards for the same shoulder, so never forget that, okay? And also when you cut the lining and you sew the darts on the lining, you have to make sure that you are sewing the same shoulder that you want to, and that the seam allowances from the darts sewing is not facing you, it's facing the other fabric. I think this made sense, but I will explain a little bit more when I'm starting to sew. So for now, I'm not gonna film, it's easy. I'm gonna cut the fabrics, one sleeve only, and one of the back and one of the front. And then exactly the same, but not the sleeve. I'm not gonna line the sleeve. I'm gonna do then exactly the same, but only on the main fabric for the sleeve. Today I'm also going to, since my fabric is white on this side, sometimes I like to leave the edge of my sleeve raw, but today since it's white underneath and I really don't want the white to pop up on the right side, I will do a special sleeve finishing, just like I did on the swimsuit pattern live. I did a small detail with purple on the wrist. I'm gonna do something here, but with red on the top of this sleeve. And I'm also going to do the same so that it matches under the bust, okay? So I'm gonna cut 3 or 4 centimeters high, the length that I have here. So I'm gonna cut a wide strap, one to place here, so it has to be this size or bigger, and the other one, it has to be this one plus the back, okay, by 4 centimeters high. This is optional, you can just fold and do a top stitch, but I'm gonna do something different, and that's why today I will need this small detail that I'm explaining. So let's go and cut what I've just explained. First thing we need to do is sew the darts. So my main fabric, as always, we fold the fabric on the line that we have cut for the darts. I pin, and I'm gonna sew the darts, as always, starting outside, doing this slight curve until I reach the fold, 3 more stitches, leave the tail, tie 2 knots and cut. And that's how you achieve perfect darts without bulkiness. You also have another video, a specific on tips and tricks on how to sew darts, but if you want to check it in more detail, it will be available there. Now for the lining, don't forget that we want to be facing, the seam to be facing inside, so we will do our darts here, okay? So it matches the other one, and we are not having the seam against our body. And I'm gonna start by sewing the darts, and besides that we can also go ahead and finish the edge of our sleeve, so it will be finished since the beginning, and that's very easy. I will place this on top of this one, and I'm going to sew the elastic on top of the red fabric from one edge to the other. Once my elastic is sewn in place, I will fold this red fabric to the other side and do a top stitch, and that's it. You will see red fabric a little bit sneaking out. I think it's the perfect detail, and I really like how it turns out. I already know what's the final result, but I will show you exactly how to do this, okay? So let's go ahead and sew this and the darts. We have sewn the elastic. We now fold the red fabric and we fold it again. And we will have this 1 centimeter edge of red. If you want, you can also do another option, which is instead of leaving the elastic like so and folding and putting the fabric like this and having 1 centimeter, you can tilt the elastic with the fabric, and instead of a 1 centimeter, you only have this sneak peek of the red. And this is the option I want for today. So I'm gonna pin this along the entire edge of my sleeve, and I'm going to my straight stitch machine, and using an elastic stitch, I'm going to stabilize this seam in place. So I set my machine to a straight stitch that I have that it is elastic, and then I moved my needle to the left until I see that it's in the end of my elastic, and you see that it's the presser foot, which is the zipper foot, is aligned with the edge of the elastic, and the needle will be sewing exactly there. And that's how I want to do my stitch. This stitch is specific. I have a straight stitch which is elastic, and that's the one I'm gonna be using today. This is how the sleeve and looks once it's sewn. As I explained, you could do a zigzag on top of the fabric. You could do it here on the edge. You have plenty of options here, but I really wanted mine to be like it is here, and you can see with this straight stitch, which is still elastic. And now you can trim the excess if you want. In my case, I'm only going to trim here in the edge, but I'm gonna leave fabric inside here because I really want that not to see the white, and I think it's a nice finish once the swimsuit is ready, the bikini is ready, to have a little bit more there. If then it bothers me, I will cut. Okay, so for now I will leave it. Don't be lazy, and the same process you used for the darts of the main fabric, exactly the same procedure for your second fabric. So don't be lazy and do a back stitch, or you will have bulky edges. Don't forget on the 4 darts to trim a little bit the fabric here, and you will have your front pieces ready. Now you have many ways of sewing this bikini pattern. Today I will not be focusing and worrying about the seam on the shoulder area. If you want to see so many options on how to sew seams, or how to hide the shoulder seams or not, or lining the entire sleeve or not, you also have swimsuit pattern live tutorial, and you also have live wave. So you have a lot of long sleeve patterns on our store, and you can watch those tutorials to see how many options we have. We also have tips and tips and tricks on how to hide the seams and everything, so you can look for that there if you want to. So align the shoulder area, right sides facing together, and I'm gonna sew without elastic on my overlock. My main goal today is to have a neckline front and back without visible seam. So focusing on that, I'm gonna grab my lining side, my second side, and I'm going to remove. This is the way to avoid bulkiness and excess fabric on your second side, okay? So I'm going to remove seam allowance from the front, and I'm gonna come from the front and to the back, all the way on your neckline front and on the back. And I'm gonna remove the seam allowance here. Next step is to align the front and the back, the front and the back, right sides facing together, and aligning the fabrics. I'm gonna be placing my main fabric on top on my table because I want to pin with this side up, and I'm gonna pin exactly that neckline that we have just removed the seam allowance from on the second fabric. That's where I'm gonna pin. I'm gonna pin from one edge to the other. I'm gonna go to my overlock, sew this entire edge using applying elastic on the top of my main fabric, and I will then be back here on the table to show you our next step. But before we sew the entire neckline, I'm going to align the side seams. So these two will be sewn together, so right sides facing together of these two. Just like, I'm gonna pin roughly so you can see this one. And then we will do the same on our second fabric. So this is one, and this is the other. This one with this one. Right sides facing together, pin and sew. And once these two vertical lines, side seams, are sewn in place, we are then ready to go and align all the fabrics like we did here and sew all around with the elastic as I just explained. Now with the side seams sewn together, we can align like we were doing before. And now, yes, we are ready to sew all this edge and apply the elastic on the side of our main fabric, so on this side. If you sew the elastic on the wrong side, you'll have to unpick everything and remake it. So that's it. Sew all around. With the elastic sewn in place, you can see already, if you unfold this to the right side and you align the fabrics, you can already see that you will have a nice neckline with no seams visible. That will look simply beautiful. Here it is. However, if you want to make sure that none of the second fabric rolls to the side of your main one, it will not roll anyway, because as you can see, if you flatten the fabrics, you already have the elastic making sure that you don't see the second fabric. However, if you want, you can still do the understitch by opening and flattening the seam against your second fabric and sewing a zigzag all around the edge, securing the seam to your second fabric. And with that understitch, you will make sure that this never slides to the other side. However, today, I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm not sure. I'm going to think about it. But if you want to do it, this is the moment, because it's the best option for you now to open and flatten and be able to do it. And now we are going to prepare these sides, the sides of our sleeve. Only with your main fabric. So I'm going to remove the other side out of the way. With the main fabric, you have notches marked on your sleeve. I'm going to align the top notch from the shoulder area on the seam. I'm going to align this edge on this seam here on the side. the opposite seam, and then the entire sleeve I'm gonna pin very carefully, aligning the two fabrics. Once you have aligned it and pin it to the main fabric, we will then do something to hide this seam between our first fabric and our second fabric, and I'm gonna tell you exactly how to do it. But first, I like to pin the entire sleeve to my main fabric, so that's what I'm gonna do first. Now with the seam aligned, grab your second fabric and move it like I'm showing you, and align it also on the same spots. Maybe it's easier to go to your sewing machine and do a basting stitch there and then do what I'm about to show you. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a basting stitch, and then I'm gonna come back and combine these two with this one. It's easier. So we aligned and did the basting stitch, and then I did a mistake and I had to remove it. And I got it on camera, and now I have to remake it, but it's fine. Well, so now you have your basting stitch. We can go and place our swimsuit all to the right side, like if it was finished, like so. And now we want to try and hide the seam on the shoulder area. So instead of sewing this like so, and you would have the seam visible, we are going to align like so. And so when it's sewn in place, you will be hiding this between the fabrics. Let me repeat again. So we have this here, right? And if you just align here, you will see the seam. So you just grab it, move it to the side of your sleeve, and grab it. And now that's the line we are going to sew. This one right here. I'm going to pin a little bit. I'm gonna go to my sewing machine and I'm gonna do a stitch all along this edge. This is the final stitch for the sleeve, and it will go from one edge to the other of the sleeve. It's not easy to pin all the surface that we want to all at once, but you will pull the fabric and do it carefully until you have everything aligned. So I'm gonna pin, and then I'm gonna sew, and then I'll be back here. Sewn just like I showed you on my sewing machine. And now if we turn this again to the right side, our shoulder seam should look nice. This is from the mistake I did before. There are some threads here I need to cut, and on the inside the seam is hidden. So now I need to trim this excess that I had left from when I attached the elastic on the edge of my sleeve. Now we need to align the fabrics right sides facing together. So I want to align this edge from my main fabric with the same edge on the opposite side. So like so, right? Right sides facing together. and I want to align here the sleeve. And I want to align my main fabric also. So I'm gonna flatten the darts and spin. And now I want to do the same on this one. So once I have sewn these two, this and this, I will grab these two, and this is the right side. So I'm gonna grab them like so, right sides facing together, and I'm also going to sew them. When I sew the first one, from the sleeve to the main one, I don't want to grab my lining here. So I'm just going to release 1 or 2 stitches, just so I'm able to take this one out of the way. I'm gonna pin just so it's out of the way. And now I will sew without catching any of my lining. The main one is sewn together, and now I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to align it and sew this lining pieces together, only the 2 fabrics of the lining. Here you have a lot of fabrics, so you need to be careful. That's why I go to my straight stitch machine and use my elastic stitch to do this, because it's more accurate. But even so, when you are coming to this area here, even if you stop a little bit before the end, it's no problem. This will be under the arm, and this is a non-reversible top, so no one will ever see if that's not completely finished and closed. I mean, it's finished, but maybe you can sneak peek like 2 millimeters inside, but I don't think that's a problem. You have other ways to finish this, and you can watch those, as I told you, on our other tutorials. But as you will see in the end, you will see that this actually will look very nice. Now, what you see here, once we put this to the right side, is the seams from our sleeve, right? And they are a bit bulky because I have the elastic till the end here, and so they are a bit stiff. But usually what I do is I flatten these seams like so, and I give some stitches here and here, and once you have this on the right sides, it will be perfect. And this is under your arm, okay? But so I'm gonna do that straight stitch just to stabilize this bulkiness here from the elastic, and we can move on to our last step. Once you do that, we can move on to our next and last one, which is sewing these 2 fabrics together under the bust. So I just align them. I apply elastic from the sides of my lining sides, for my second sides, and then I fold and I do a zigzag as my top stitch. The only thing that I want to add at this point, and it's my final comment on this one, is that under the bust, I tend to give a little bit of tension to my elastic on the 2 areas under the bust, more or less like 10%. It depends on your elastic. But imagine when I'm sewing in this area and then I stop and then I give it again, a little bit of tension here. It will help create the shape. We already have the darts, but even so, it will help create the shape. And I know that my top will be simply perfect. So let's do that. Now remember, under the arm, so this is how it looks. It looks so ugly. I'm gonna trim the excess outside of my sewing. Remember that I left this intentionally, but if you want, you can trim it, okay? Now align and pin all the edge on the side of your second fabric, and let's go over to our overlock and apply the elastic on that side, so on my red fabric. The elastic is applied. You see me pulling the elastic a little bit just to show you that I did it only in these areas, but you can also see it now. And now it's the final step on finishing our beautiful top, which is simply going to our straight stitch machine, fold the fabric and do a zigzag all around. When I get to this area here, I pull the fabric when I fold it at the same time. I don't go to the sewing machine with the fabric like so. I have to pull the fabric a little bit until it's flattened on my sewing machine. But I'm gonna get it on camera, so maybe it's easier for you. Here is our top finished. You can choose the length of your stitch according to your own taste. On the inside it looks like this. And I think that's it for today, girls. I hope you enjoyed and see you soon. Bye!